Hello and thanks for joining us for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start by taking a look at the day's headlines. Further reducing tensions, this time disarming the once heavily armed joint security area at the DMZ. North and South Korea, as well as the UN command, are set to conclude the plan in the coming hours. The South Korean economy slows down for the second quarter in a row in the July to September period as fears rise over a prolonged economic downturn. Plus, as financial markets get ravaged in South Korea and the US again, we take a look at how the turmoil on Wall Street in recent weeks is affecting investors here in this country. Let's start, though, with the ongoing peace efforts here on the Korean Peninsula. And it's a big day today as the two Koreas and the United Nations Command are set to conclude the demilitarization of the joint security area along the inter-Korean border. This is in accordance with the inter-Korean military agreement signed just last month. After 2 days of joint verification of a full withdrawal of firearms and guard posts beginning Friday, visitors from South and North Korea, as well as those from abroad, will be able to walk freely across the border within the JSA. The two Koreas will place 35 personnel from each of their respective sides for surveillance, but they will be carrying no arms. Around 150 South Korean businessmen could visit the Gaeseong Industrial Complex next week to check upon their assets. According to Seoul's Unification Ministry, discussions are being held between the two sides regarding the visit. The South Koreans had to leave the joint factory park in February 2016 when Seoul suspended operations there after the North's fourth nuclear test. This will be the first time they get to visit the joint park since it was shut down. At the Inter-Korean Summit in September, it was agreed the complex will open again once conditions are settled. But Seoul stressed on Wednesday the upcoming visit has nothing to do with the reopening of the complex. It's only to protect the South Korean businesses' property rights. South Korea's economy grew at a slower pace than expected during the July to September period amid shrinking investment. The central bank says the economy expanded 0.6% on quarter in the third quarter, same as second quarter growth, and contracting from 1% expansion in the first. Compared to the same period last year, third quarter growth expanded by 2%, slower than the previous quarter's 2.8%. Consumption and exports led growth, but investment in business facilities and construction fell by 4.7% on year and 6.4% on quarter, respectively, driving down overall GDP growth. Now, South Korea's benchmark Kospi on Thursday fell to its lowest level so far this year after US stocks plunged the previous day. For more on this, we have our Ryu Hyun-jin on the line for us. So, Rooney, tell us how the markets are looking right now.
Mark, Korea's benchmark Kospi opened lower on Thursday at around 2046. This is almost 2.5% down from yesterday's close. This is the first time that the index was below the 2050 level since January last year. And on Wednesday, the Kospi closed below 2,100 points, its lowest close since March last year. The tech-heavy Kosdaq also nosedived by almost 3% on Thursday.
Yeah, so it really isn't looking that great for investors here in Korea at the moment. But just what exactly is behind the reason for this sudden drop? And just tell us exactly how the US markets did on Wednesday as well.
Mark, all major indices on Wall Street fell on Wednesday, with some even wiping out gains made over the past year. The Nasdaq dropped nearly 4.5%, losing more than 329 points. It was the worst performer and had its biggest single-day slide since August 2011. The Dow Jones Industrial Average shed close to 2.5%, or more than 600 points. The S&P 500 dropped over 3%, or nearly 85 points. The Dow Jones Industrial Average and S&P 500 erased all of their gains for 2018. Analysts say uncertainties about the local and global economy have led to this massive sell-off. For instance, investors have been worried about disappointing earnings reports from U.S. companies and the upcoming U.S. midterm congressional elections. And of course, there are continuing worries over the trade war between the U.S. and China. That's all for me at this hour mark.
Well, thank you very much for that report, Rooney, and keep us updated on what happens with the Kospi and the Kosdaq as we go through the trading day. It isn't looking that great at the moment. Now, the world's two largest smartphone manufacturers, Apple and Samsung Electronics, have been fined millions of dollars by Italy's antitrust authorities. They claim both the tech giants provided consumers with operating system updates that were not optimized for some models. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
Antitrust authorities in Italy have fined Samsung and Apple around $5.7 million and $11.4 million, respectively, for deliberately slowing down their smartphones. The European country's watchdog said the two companies used software updates that significantly reduced performance, hence leaving consumers with little choice but to purchase new phones. It explained that Samsung strongly encourages customers to use Android operating system updates that were not optimized for its Galaxy 4, which was released in 2014. It was also found that Samsung did not notify its users of the serious malfunctions that such an update could cause. According to the authorities, Apple also encouraged consumers to use updates that were not optimized for specific models, nor did it provide adequate information about the impact of the new software update. Samsung says it's disappointed with the decision, adding it's preparing to appeal, highlighting that all updates were intended to enable customers to have the best experience possible. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
The South Korean government will introduce heftier punishments against irregularities at private preschools and step up monitoring of their accounting transparency. The ruling Democratic Party of Korea and the Education Ministry announced the new measures Thursday in light of recent revelations that some 1,900 kindergartens nationwide were involved in a series of irregularities, from accounting fraud to using taxpayer money to buy personal goods. Private preschools will be required to adopt a state accounting system currently used at schools, that's known as EduFine, on top of initial plans to add some 500 new public kindergartens next year. The government will double that to 1,000 as part of its aim of achieving a ratio of 40% state-run kindergartens. The government also plans to warn private preschools of stronger punishment if they take actions such as a collective strike or refuse to take new students, as it's a violation of the country's fair trade law. Now to shocking news from the US. Just a couple of weeks before the big midterms there, police in the United States have intercepted what is believed to be explosive devices that were mailed to former President Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and a slew of other high-profile Democrats. CNN's New York office was also evacuated over a suspicious package there as well. For more on this story and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Noah Aram. So Aram, what's the latest?
Well, Mark, Wednesday's incident took place just 2 days after a bomb was found at the home of liberal billionaire George Soros in New York. Officials said the devices, Wednesday's devices, were pipe bombs and were intercepted by technicians who screen the mail that is sent to US officials. No one was hurt, fortunately, and there was no immediate claim of responsibility. President Trump, an outspoken critic of the left-wing media, issued a rare call for unity.
The full weight of our government is being deployed to conduct this investigation and bring those responsible for these despicable acts to justice. We will spare no resources or expense in this effort. And I just want to tell you that in these times, we have to unify. We have to come together and send one very clear, strong, unmistakable message that acts or threats of political violence of any kind have no place in the United States of America.
The CNN bureau in New York also had to be evacuated after receiving a suspicious package containing white powder. That is currently being investigated. President Trump has often called the media fake news and the enemy of the people. CNN President Jeff Zucker released a statement calling out Trump and also White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders. He wrote, "There is a total lack of understanding at the White House about the seriousness of their continued attacks on the media." The incident also comes just 2 weeks before the US midterm elections, bringing a new level of tension in an already deeply polarized country. The Saudi Crown Prince has vowed to bring the killers of journalist Jamal Khashoggi to justice in his first comments since some of his closest aides were implicated in the journalist's death. Mohammed bin Salman was speaking at an investment forum in Riyadh, which many Western officials and business leaders had boycotted in the wake of the murder.
First of all, the crime was really painful to all Saudis, and I believe it is painful to every human in the world. It is a heinous crime that cannot be justified. Today, Saudi Arabia is carrying out all legal things to finalize the investigation, to cooperate with the Turkish government, and to present the perpetrators to the court and take their judgment.
Saudi Arabia has been under mounting global pressure to clarify its conflicting accounts on what happened to Khashoggi. The Saudis have denied accusations that the prince himself actually had a role in the killing. The world has welcomed at least one new instant multi-millionaire on Tuesday night as a single ticket sold in South Carolina won the eye-watering Mega Millions jackpot of more than $1.5 billion. Our Lee has more.
5, 28, 62, 65, 70, and the Mega Ball 5, beating odds of 1 in 302.6 million. The winning ticket was sold in South Carolina. While the latest Mega Millions prize was expected to be the largest jackpot in history, the final total fell slightly below the estimated $1.6 billion in the end, making it the second biggest ever jackpot. The lump sum option on Tuesday's jackpot is $877.8 million. If the lucky winner or winners chose that option, the total haul will be about $491.7 million after federal and state taxes. The state of South Carolina has an income tax rate of 7%, while the federal tax rate is at 37%. At least 36 ticket holders came up just short, hitting all 5 numbers, but not the Mega Ball number. That prize isn't too shabby at $1 million, with 8 of the tickets being sold in California. With the first jackpot winner since July 24th, the Mega Millions will reset to its baseline $40 million jackpot for its next draw on Friday. But many have their fingers crossed for the Powerball draw on Wednesday night for a chance at an estimated $620 million. While we may never know who the winner or winners of the Mega Millions jackpot is or are, one thing is for sure: he, she, or they are now amongst the richest people in the world. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Today, October 25th, is Dokdo Day here in South Korea, where the country celebrates King Gojong's decree 118 years ago that Dokdo is part of Ulleungdo Island. To mark the day, the voluntary agency network of Korea plans to use social networking sites to raise international awareness about Korea's easternmost islets. According to the group, 80 photos of Dokdo will be shared around the world. Events are scheduled throughout the day, including the Korea International Dokdo Music Festival, which will happen in Seoul's Gwanghwamun Square. K-pop boy band BTS are back on home soil after a highly successful American and European world tour that saw them perform in front of hundreds of thousands of highly excited fans. The 7-member group was in Seoul on Wednesday to receive a prestigious cultural medal awarded by the South Korean government. Won Jung-hwan with the details.
Another big achievement for BTS. the sensational boy band has received one of the Korean government's prestigious medals for culture, the 5th rank of the Hwagan Order of Cultural Merit. It's given to those who have contributed to the development of the national culture, in the case of BTS, for helping spread Korean culture and the Korean alphabet Hangul around the world. The band went to accept the medal Wednesday in Seoul at the 9th Korea Entertainment Awards, a ceremony run by the Ministry of Culture. With an average age of less than 24 years old, the members of BTS have become the youngest ever recipients of the cultural medal, an honor higher than even a commendation from the president. It had been given previously only to artists who'd worked for an average of around 50 years.
Thank you. When we go abroad, we see a lot of people singing along to our songs and studying our language, Hangul. We feel very proud, and we promise we will continue to promote our culture to the world.
Only twice before has the medal been given for promoting Korean culture, in 2008 to actor Bae Yong-jun and in 2012 to pop star Psy. Their fans are outspoken about why they love the band so much.
They're very real. Very many celebrities, especially in America, which is where we're from. It's hard to get into touch with what they're feeling. They very rarely express what they're feeling, what they're going through. And BTS is so fluid with everything. They're transparent. They don't seem to hide anything.
They just seem like they're just having a lot of fun doing what they're doing. A lot of celebrities look like it's fake. They just look like they're really enjoying it. So it looks real from behind the scene.
With one more prestigious decoration on their shelf, BTS will resume their world tour called Love Yourself, with concerts scheduled for next month in Japan. 원정환, Arirang News.
Now, the eyes of millions of baseball fans in South Korea are glued to the nation's sport channels this morning as the LA Dodgers South Korean pitcher Ryu Hyun-jin has started his first World Series game against the Boston Red Sox. It would be pressure enough, but the Dodgers' opening game loss to the Red Sox, 8-4, means his team is relying on him to put in a stellar performance at Boston's Fenway Park to level up the series at 1 apiece. The historic day for Ryu comes as he's the first South Korean pitcher to ever start a World Series. And this game, like I said, started about an hour ago. We'll bring you the result, hopefully a positive one for Ryu, in our later newscasts. The UN's top official in charge of protecting refugees has been in Seoul for the past few days for talks with South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa and other officials here as well. The issue of refugees has been quite a political hot potato here in South Korea, as there have been over 12,000 refugee applications submitted this year alone, and that's a lot for South Korea, and many of these applicants come from Yemen. Our Lee Ji-won had the chance to sit down with the High Commissioner to hear his take on the matter.
The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees Filippo Grandi commended South Korea on Wednesday for its protection for Yemeni refugees and urged further courage in solving the issue.
Granted, it's not the full refugee status, but it is humanitarian protection, it is strong, and it prevents them from being deported back to their country, which would be catastrophic because they would be exposed to risk to losing their lives.
Earlier this month, South Korea decided to give humanitarian stay permits to 339 Yemeni asylum seekers to let them stay for at least 1 year. This brings the number of Yemenis allowed to stay to 362. Grandi said he was aware many South Koreans are uncomfortable about letting too many refugees into the country. But he said that while there's resistance from a sizable portion of the population, there are many South Koreans who want to help those fleeing life or death situations in their home countries.
People in Jeju Island brought blankets, rice, offered shelter, helped people. People are going to school. So there is a lot of solidarity in Korea. The Korean people we have 300,000 individual donors to UNHCR programs in Korea. This is the largest number of private donors in any country except Spain and the United States.
In a separate interview, he pointed out that an inflow of refugees does not generally stir anxiety in society, especially in developed countries, and claims that more refugees equals more crime is, quote, fake news. He then urged South Korea to show more support in ending conflict around the world.
And I would like to tell Korea, you are, at this historical moment, showing leadership in peacemaking around one of the most difficult conflicts of the last decades. You are showing a lot of courage and leadership. Don't be afraid to continue to show that leadership.
Refugee issues are dear to many people in South Korea, especially since many brothers and sisters in the north defect and live in other Asian countries as refugees. Unfortunately, Grandi says his agency does not have access to China, the first destination for most North Koreans, as Beijing does not seek help from the UNHCR. But he dearly hopes that this too will be solved.
I hope that progress in peace talks will have as an immediate effect an improvement of the humanitarian situation in North Korea and of the people there.
이지원, Arirang News.
Now, the influx of fake news on social media has caused people in South Korea to question nearly every news story they see posted by their friends on Facebook, Twitter, or the like. In the final installment of our special three-part series on this matter, our Oh So-young explores what needs to be done to help the public distinguish what's real and what's little more than just make-believe.
It seems that Korean society needs more fundamental solutions in its fight against fake news. After the Justice Ministry last week proposed tough measures to crack down on the spread of false information, experts are concerned that this will only suppress the problem rather than resolve it.
There are already laws against defamation and invasion of privacy, so we should start by questioning where existing policies have failed and what we need to change. The term fake news is still vague in definition, so imposing new policies without clarity is worrying. It could clamp down on the freedom of expression, so this issue must be approached with prudence.
Instead of restrictive measures, Hong stressed the role of the government and the media in helping the public distinguish between different shadings of the truth.
But first, the media needs to win back public trust. With the deluge of disinformation, a survey by the Korea Press Foundation this year found that only 1 out of 4 South Koreans trust the news stories that they consume. 61% were worried about fake news.
I think there's a lot of fabrication, so I take in about half of what I see and filter out the rest.
I'd say I trust about 30 to 40% of what I see. I don't trust traditional broadcasters either. I get suspicious because of their ties to politics.
To boost their credibility, experts say journalists in Korea need to improve the quality of their reporting and help expose fake news by setting the facts straight. A number of papers and broadcast programs now carry fact-checking news reports. But it's not just a task for politicians or journalists. Battling disinformation also requires a conscious effort from the public, especially as social media platforms tend to recommend content based on the user's preferences.
I would really call for people to be given better guidance about what's real and what's fake, but also to engage in more critical thinking and public discourse about these kind of debates.
Popular online platforms also have some responsibility for improving media literacy. Experts say they need to invest more in educating their users to help them spot fake news. They should also develop ways to present content from legitimate, credible sources while maintaining diversity of opinion. Oh So-young, Arirang News.
Good morning. The chilly morning will turn into a warm afternoon today. But first, let's have a look at what the weather has in store for us over the next week. Tomorrow, we'll see nationwide showers, which will help to relieve the dryness in the air. But colder air will pour in. And another band of rain on Sunday afternoon will bring our next punch of even colder air. So next week, we'll need our winter jackets. We'll end October with a brief autumn cold snap with lows going down to just 3 degrees Celsius here in the capital and highs in the low teens. So today should be the warmest afternoon of the season with highs rising to the 20s in most parts. Air quality will also be decent, but expect to see more clouds move in after lunch. Most parts will see highs between 19 and 22 degrees Celsius. Seoul, Daejeon, Daegu, and Jeju will get up to 21 degrees this afternoon, and those in Gyeongju will have temperature differences of nearly 17 degrees between highs and lows. But overall, let's make the most of today's afternoon weather. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, we're all out of time, I'm afraid. Stay tuned to Arirang TV. We'll have our next newscast coming up at noon Korea time. That's with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.